This is Kids First C tutorial number 2. It's by Victor Wong. If you don't remember me, I'm the person who did the first C tutorial. And this is a series, obviously, of C tutorials allowing you to get better and better at C until you have a basic understanding of C. It's a complete guide from nothing to basic understanding of C. And this is the number 2. I'm going to be using some references from the first one and something we learned in the first tutorial. So, you might want to check that out if you're a new one to this one. Otherwise, some of the things I refer to might not make sense. Let's get into the tutorial. Overview. In this tutorial, you're going to learn what's the base for any program, big or small. Any program has a base, or what's necessary for it. Some have other stuff besides the base, and some have just a tiny bit more than what the base is. But anyway, any program has a base. In this tutorial, we're going to tell you what the base is so you can add more stuff to it to make an actual functioning C program. It's going to be your first adventure with a real C program, and we're going to explore with it and see what it has. So let's get moving. Your first C program. Comets. This program will tell you your number is even or odd. September 4, 2019. That's what the comments say. And we're asking, what is a comment in the first place? A comment is a place where the compiler does not read. It pretends it's invisible. But to humans, we see it as a friendly message that could be useful if you want to explain a really messy code. If you have a really big one and a really complex one, and someone wants to know how does it work, then comments can be really useful. Otherwise, how can you explain if you were out and you cannot physically talk to them? Comments are what it's for. So you can verbally put some stuff in, and then text, you can put some text in, and then the other person knows, oh, okay, that's what's happening. Now, there's two types of comments, and remember these two types of comments. The first type of comment is called a block comment. A block comment can last multiple lines. So if you have a really big block comment, that's totally fine. But it needs an ending. Now, what I mean by needs an ending, you technically don't need an ending, but otherwise it will comment out the whole entire rest of your program. Now, this is obviously terrible and a bad idea, so we should put an ending. And or start a comment, this type of comment, put a slash and a star, the artistic. If you do 8 and push shift. Then put your comment stuff in. After the end, do the reverse, except that the slash is the same. So put the star first and then the slash. And that'll make it so you're not gonna end the doom of your whole entire program by commenting it all out. That's obviously a good thing. The second part is a line comment. A line comment does not mean ending. It just comments the whole entire line. Simple. As soon as you click on that and make it, the whole line's commented. Done. There's no way to stop it. So that could be useful too. If you have a long comment, you don't want to put an ending mark, or it's really hard to find the ending mark, you can just use a line comment if your text is only one line. Now, the second example, as you can see, it commented out the line, but I don't have any ending for it. In order to activate, you need a double slash, and there's no ending to it, because it only comments out one line, so it cannot comment out the rest of the program like the block comment can do. So you can just leave it like that, and the whole entire line is commented out. It's called line comment. Simple. Include section. Now this is quite important. In our printf and scanf functions and our other printf functions, the computer does not know it. It really does not. In C programming, there is no default printf or scanf functions or those types. No, there is not. So we need to have a file so the computer can read that file and understand what a printf function is. So when we call that function, it knows what a printf function is. Now, where is the file? Well, that's what we're including. We're including the file, obviously, in the include section, as you can see. So we're including a file called stdio.h, and this is a special file called a header file. And this has the files for the printf and the scanf functions, so then the computer understands what a printf and a scanf function is. So when we call them, it knows and it can appropriately do this stuff without having to get out errors saying like, I don't know what this function is. Well, we're going to define it in a file and we're going to include that file so the computer knows. Main function. This is extremely important. You can have a million line program and then have no main function and make it not run at all. We have the issue here that happens. What's gonna happen if you don't have a main function? Nothing is gonna happen. The computer is not gonna run your program. The main function is where things are run, and it's the only function that when you declare it, it's run. So, and it only runs one time, which is why you declare it. You cannot call the main function. It only is used when you define it. So in this case, we have the main function, and you see these little two brackets here and here. These two brackets mark where the beginning and the end of the main function are. So all the stuff here is in the main function, and therefore will be run by the computer. While this stuff here will not be run by the computer. Now you might be asking, why are we including a file that's not in the main function? Well, the file is a file, and it's not a program. So we can't run it first of all. And second of all, it doesn't have any useful stuff that we can run. So even if it did have stuff, it's not useful. So we don't need to run at all. We just need to include it, and including it, we just can write down the word include so the computer knows we want to include that. We don't need to put in the main function or have some sort of other fancy function to include something. We just write the word include outside the main function, and we're done with that. And the main function is very important, otherwise nothing will be done. I want to repeat that because you could have a really long code and you're finally done, you run it and nothing happens. And your code could be completely right. It's just you never called the stuff you defined. Obviously, this is a very big issue, and we can do that by putting stuff in the main function to use the stuff you want to do. And anything in the main function can call a function you declared outside the main function. But anything that's going to run is in the main function. So remember that the next time you have a really long program and your program does not run, but there's no GCC errors. Display statements. Now this is pretty important. In this code, as in the comments, the top comments, the block comment and the line comment is just the date. This program will tell you if a number is even or odd. Well, okay, now we know the program is going to tell you if a number is even or odd. But where did we get this number in the first place? After all, my first lesson I said computers cannot talk to humans just like English or any of those languages we make humans. So we need to have a little press statement here. This press statement says, please enter a number. Okay, and then I have a colon. Now, if we don't have the scanf part right next to it, it would not make any sense, and I have an arrow to it. But because we have a scanf, it's taking the stuff we are going to input, and then we're going to use that. You define a variable called num, and we use num, we store. So if someone types in, if it's print, please enter a number, and someone types in 74. Great. The printf does the job. It prints out, please enter a number, and the scanf does its job by taking the 74 the human inputted and putting that stuff into the num. So now num has a value of 74. Great. That's what we want to do, right? Yeah. If statements. If statements, I want to talk about that in the later one. The quick thing is that they're kind of obvious. They just like, if this is true, do this. Else is like, otherwise, do this. Pretty much that's the basics. So if num divided by 2 equals 0, and then if you're really young, you might not know this, but if you're older, you should know, and an even number divided by 2 is not a decimal, and it does not have the extra 1 left over. So, in this case, if it's 0, that means there's nothing left. There's no remainder left. That means say printf. It's an even number. Great. The printf does its job again. It displays it's an even number. Else, the divided by 2 only has 2 remainder options, 0 or 1. So we don't need to have some other switch crazy statements. We can just say else printf, it's an odd number because it has a 50-50 chance. So if it's not even, it must be odd. If it's not odd, it must be even. So we don't need to put any crazy shenanigans here. Well, also for if and else statement, after an if is run, it completely skips the else. there's nothing that could activate else. And if it fails, it's going to do the else. So it's going to print out one of those messages, and then we're done with our stuff, right? We print out it's an even number. We took the number, we use that, we tested it if it's even or odd number, and then we print it out. But we need to end this, otherwise the computer is your code a million lines long, or does it just end right here? So we have return 0. Return 0 is what the int main is going to return. Int is going to return 0. I'm going to cover about this in my functions video. And then we need to end the main function, so the computer does not think our main function is a million lines long. So we put the ending bracket, as I mentioned when I was discussing about the main function. And that is pretty much what this program's components are. And that's how this program works. Basic syntax. We have tokens. A C program consists of various tokens, and token is a keyword, identifier, a constant, a string literal, or a symbol. For example, the following C statement has 5 tokens. Now, a token is kind of like a single part of a C statement. And usually they're like C statements, except like miniature parts of C statements. C statements are like miniature parts of functions, and functions are the miniature parts of your program. So they're kind of like the very minimum for your program. So this tiny little statement, printf hello, has 5 tokens. Believe it or not. Printf itself, the left parenthesis itself is 1. The quotation marks is not, but everything inside is considered a string and therefore is 1 token. So before we have 3, the printf, the left parenthesis, the string, we have the right parenthesis, and we have the semicolon. Just that little statement has 5 tokens. So you can imagine how small these tokens are. And semicolons. Semicolons is the ending terminator for any statement, just like in English period. In English, we have periods, like this one I just used to end my thing, right here. Now, in C programming, the computer needs a period too, and in this case, we use semicolons. So, just use semicolons instead of periods. I mean, it's pretty similar, it's just a semicolon. Same purpose, to end your statement. So, in English, we use a period. In C, we use a semicolon. Basic syntax, continue. Identifiers. Identifier is a number used to identify a variable, function, or any other user-defined item. It's just like a name to stand for anything you define. Just like my mom is identifier mom, something you can call. So for variables, functions, or any other user-defined item, they have a name too. It's identifiers. Any identifier starts with the letter A to Z, lowercase a to z, or an underscore, followed by 0 or more letters, underscores, and digits, 0 to 9. So this brings out some legal and illegal. Some underscore apples is okay. Age 1, okay. Year 2019, okay, because the digits are after the first. And this is actually a very common mistake. And first underscore name is totally fine. Illegal, 2019 year. You might be very confused from this one. Like, why is it illegal? But they never said the starting letter can have a digit, did they? Because of this, this is illegal because the first letter is 2, and 2 is a digit, not a capital A to Z, lowercase a to z, or an underscore. So this is illegal. More basic syntax. Keywords. Reserved words in C. These reserved words may not be used as constants or variables or any other identifier names. Pretty much, this is already predefined in C, and therefore you cannot use the word. If you are, is it a keyword or not? Just type the word in without anything else, and if the computer says undeclared identifier, then it's not a keyword. If it does not say that, you're in trouble. Now here's some examples. Char, int, long, float, double, unsigned, void, if, else, for, while, do, break, continue, switch, case, default, return, and structures. The first one is data types. The second one is loops, decision-making statements, and their controls. Even more basic syntax. White space. White space is the term used you can see describe blanks, tabs, new line, characters, and comments. So pretty much it's like spaces, tabs, new lines, empty space, nothing has it. Int age must have a white space between the int and the age. So in that definition, you must have a space. However, fruit equals apples plus oranges with no spaces does not require spaces, but you can add them anyway. If you want to increase some visibility, you can just say fruit space equals space apples space plus space oranges. Totally fine. The compiler does not care, but if you think you're having a little trouble reading your code when everything is smashed together, sure, just add an extra space. Finally, the task. Add a line and block comment to the program earlier. Add a printf statement and a semicolon to the program earlier. So pretty much I want you to add both types of comments, I explained that earlier, and a statement, a printf statement particularly. And remember the semicolon. But in a printf statement, you can print absolutely anything except what we already printed. Just print something new, just to make you really understand the basics of this tutorial. And that's the end of this tutorial, so see you next time!